Special Delivery.
Presented by Stillafrog.
Work was sending me to London for 3 months. I was just the official eye-dotter and tea-crosser, but it was exciting, not only because it was a landmark acquisition for the firm, but the whole living in London thing. Okay, so maybe it wasn't quite the American in Paris scenario. For me, though, it was still exotic. An apartment just down the road from Marble Arch, or as the British say, just down the, road. So maybe that wasn't... Anyway, the point was it was a grand adventure. Don't get me wrong, I loved where I lived. I particularly loved spending the evenings with my adoring boyfriend. We were still in that honeymoon phase. Not marriage, mind you, but that beginning of a relationship, can't stop having sex phase. Wherever, whenever. He worked for UPS, and sometimes I'd meet him at his place during lunch, or he'd stop by my house during his Saturday deliveries. Let's just say now, like that Pavlovian trained dog, I'd hear a big truck outside the office and I'd instinctively start to undress. However, honeymoon or not, there was almost nothing in the way of conversation. But the sex was just so damn good. So there was perhaps the one major drawback to my impending UK experience. But I couldn't not go, and of course he couldn't come with me. It was too early. Too much time for him to take off work. We'd talked about the concept for all of about 10 minutes. We both realized it wouldn't work, so we just had sex instead. A week later, after a send-off so earth-shaking that I get shivers and then some thinking about it, I was England-bound. London, fortunately, was every bit as charming and easy to fall in love with as I'd imagined. Parliament, Buckingham Palace, the Tower Bridge, all of the hot spots, even the Tube with the constant droning of "Mind the gap." Granted, I was in London, not Rome, but it all made for a very Audrey Hepburn-esque kind of experience. Plus, I was killing it for my company, so the only element lacking was the romance. Thank goodness we at least live in a digital universe where tablets and cell phones can relieve the tension of separation in more ways than one. So here I was, busy climbing the corporate ladder, sex-festing it up, virtually speaking, with my temporarily long-distance boyfriend, and enjoying the sights and sounds of merry old England. What more could I possibly want? I just had to ask, didn't I? I'd been there 2 months to the day. The lawyers were coming in now as we were nearing the finish line. Ours had flown in from the States, and theirs was drop-dead gorgeous, charming, funny as hell, smelled amazing, dressed impeccably. There was nothing wrong with this guy. Nothing. And I mean abso-fucking-lutely nothing. Keep in mind, I am sex-starved, albeit making do, but there's just something about skin on skin. Damn, I had to get some air. He was calm, he was friendly and yet businesslike when called for, and he was ethical to a fault. And to me in particular, he'd been extraordinarily nice. So rather than focusing on the papers as soon as the meeting wrapped, which is what I should have been doing, I just kept looking at him. Don't lose track of what's at stake. Concentrate, dummy. Well, that wasn't at all grueling, he said with a mildly ironic smirk. His voice, his dry English humor, any one of them was swoon-worthy. I felt myself flush. Lord, why hast thou forsaken me? Thank God it's nearly finished, I smiled, trying to disguise how I really felt and wondering if he noticed. Tell you what, he offered, I know it's a bit late, but I've not had supper yet. Would you care to accompany me? And his English accent. I shouldn't. I should probably go back to my flat. See, I was learning their words. And review this while it's all still fresh in the old noggin. The old noggin? Had I really just said that? Come on, you must eat, so allow me to tempt you. Oh, you certainly don't have to worry about that. He smiled this boyish smile, and all I could think was, take me, right here, on the conference table. Okay, sure, when you put it that way, how can I resist? Famous last words. Dinner was a blip on the radar screen of that evening, you could say. In fact, it was appetizers along with a few drinks, and then we bailed on the restaurant before the main course even got there. We had a very different sort of main course in mind. We had sex on the sofa first. From the sofa, it was then on to the bed, multiple times. like to say it was one night. One lust-filled, erotic night, the kind contained within those soft porn romance novels penned with bored housewives in mind. I'd like to say that, but I can't. It was a couple of weeks, actually. Intense, as in we spent the days in the boardroom telepathically sending one another sexual signals, mental foreplay right there across the table. And when we had the chance to sit next to one another, I digress. At night, it was nonstop. As for my boyfriend, I kept claiming late evenings at the office, explaining that as the project neared its end, I had to focus 100% on keeping everyone on the same page. I used exhaustion, hunger, a bad cold, stupid rainy London weather, everything I could think of as an excuse. I couldn't help myself, and I felt terrible, but how could I feel so awful about something that felt so right? I think he sensed it. In fact, once when he called from his truck, I heard the song in the background. I know where you go, I knew when you came home last night, 'cause your eyes all a-mist with the smoke from a distant fire. With the end of what was increasingly feeling like my British holiday approaching, I was conjuring up a quaint ivy-covered B&B in my head, where we'd escape to for a few days once this was all over. I was also wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into and how it could possibly end well, when there was a knock at my door. "Don't you have your key?" I grinned as I opened it. "Special delivery," he sheepishly smiled. "I just couldn't wait another week and a half," he gushed, and then swept me up in his arms. Fuck me, he was actually dressed in his UPS uniform. We were in the bed before I could protest, run away, or start blurting out my indiscretions of the past few weeks. I wasn't this woman. Was I? No. Right? But the sex was every bit as good as I remember. Maybe even better. The feeling, though, it was definitely missing. "What's wrong?" he whispered when we were lying there silent for the most part. "Nothing," I dismissed. "Yeah, there is. Feeling's not there anymore, is it?" "No, it's not," I began. "I don't know if it ever has been." There was a long pause. "You've never felt it, have you?" he replied. "No, I haven't, but I've always wanted to. I really tried. It just wasn't there. But the sex has been spectacular," I smiled. "It has been, hasn't it?" he brightened. "But it's not enough, is it? Is there someone else?" he asked. "Yes, there is," I answered gently. "I never meant to hurt you. I'm sorry." He stood and began scanning the room for his clothes. "It's okay," he uttered softly. "And really, I'll reimburse you for the fight. I am so sorry." "It's fine, really. I might as well see what kind of women the other side of the pond has to offer," he chuckled. "I enjoyed our time," he said. "So did I replied. And then he left. Just like that. Our relationship, I'd probably always known but never saw until now, began and ended in bed, and there was nothing much in between. Now I have this amazing guy, and this time it's more than just incredible sex. There's also the feeling. I think I love him. But he's ever so conveniently 3,000 miles away. What am I supposed to do with that? I needed to get moving. We were meeting for dinner in an hour, and I was leaving London in 10 days.
Ribbit.
Want to hear more about fall-down laughing first date disasters, hilarious online dating nightmares, and even that rare, magical meeting that turns into a romance for the ages? Download our free app, A New True Story Every Day, the ever-entertaining comedy of the attraction between men and women.